Before this video starts, I just want to thank EA for providing me a code for the Dead Space remake. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to review the Dead Space remake. And let's kind of get it out of the way early. I know you've probably seen the other, big headlines, and I guess I'm falling in line because I'm kind of doing the same. This is one of the best remakes ever created, and you've probably seen some of the headlines that say, horror remakes that aren't Resident Evil, don't have Resident Evil in the name. This probably is the best remake. Yeah, Resident Evil 2's remake is often looked at as one of the best. I have some personal favorite remakes as well, but I think Dead Space does everything you want a remake to do. Now, when I look at a game, and I actually talked about this when we looked at the review scores from journalists a few days ago on my second channel, and I had said one of the things I want when it comes to a remaster or a remake, right? There's a couple things, but one of them that I want to talk about first is this the place to play it? When a game comes out again, years and years later, the last thing you probably want is to be told that, well, the original is still better. So, find your PS3, find your 360, play it, because that's the better place to play it over this one. That's not the case. I really would say and feel very confident in saying this is the place. If you've never played Dead Space before, and I have seen this example, we'll talk about that in a second online. If you've never played this game before, this is the place to play it, 100%. I would never recommend the original Dead Space over this one, and it's because everything is enhanced from the visuals, which you can probably tell just by looking at it, right? But, it really does make a difference. This does feel like if Dead Space is made in 2023. And then some of the quality of life kind of things, and even the additions, even the things I was worried about going in, I think they nailed it across the board. You got Isaac talking, right? And I had said, all right, well, 1-to-1 game, you're keeping the same story, but now he talks. Well, the story is going to change just a little, right? But now he talks. Now, they have to change the dialogue that other characters have because, well, if he's talking now, you can't just pretend like he didn't say anything, right? So there is going to be some changes. So does it work? Yes, I think Isaac works perfectly in this game. I think they're enhancing everything that the original game had without changing much. They're kind of just adding to it, which I think is a really, really good thing, to be honest with you. You also have some of the smaller Isaac details, like his suit will change depending on situation. He'll breathe heavier. He'll kind of be more scared, let's say, in certain situations. I don't know if you guys have seen this one. This is a pretty cool thing. As the game goes on, and you do notice this, you can test it yourself. As the game goes on, his stomping becomes more violent. He actually gets louder and more aggressive in his own voice. When he's kind of grunting, he actually gets more, into it, but more aggressive, more, I don't even know what the situation maybe would call for in the game, but he gets there every chapter as the game goes on just because of the situation. So honestly, it's those kind of small things that just help it because it is roughly the same game. It looks better than ever. It feels better than ever. Yes, it still feels, I say feels, right? I like how it feels. I know my wife had told me, I don't necessarily like how it works. It's the way Dead Space is, right? And so I guess if you didn't like the first Dead Space, you didn't like how, the combat and all that stuff was organized, I doubt you're going to like it here, but I think everything works perfectly. The loading is extremely noticeable. They don't use crawl spaces, right? We're kind of in the age of games where you need to crawl in between rocks every 5 seconds to load. Not here now. The train is the loading, right? So you'll have some sequences, not after every chapter. I think the first 2 chapters maybe skip it, but it does become a regular thing. You'll go to the train, you'll go to a different part of the ship, and it'll take a little bit. It'll take 10, 20, 30 seconds, depending on actually how far apart the locations are in the train, and you're stuck in the train, right? So you imagine the game is kind of loading, but beyond that, everything back and forth, and this is a game where you go back and forth, and doors that were previously locked will now become unlocked, and that's how the game works, and no loading involved, absolutely no loading. And again, those are more of those quality of life things. It's tough to talk too much about this game because here's the deal: if you've never played this game before, I don't want to spoil the story. I don't want to spoil certain characters, what happens and all that stuff. The game is really good. This is one of the best, in my opinion. I've always looked at this game as one of the best horror games of all time. I'm a pretty big baby with this kind of stuff. there are some times playing this game where things will come out and absolutely, surprise me where I didn't think it would. And remember, we actually talked about this leading into the game. They have an engine or a system in this game that actually is kind of spontaneous, is kind of random. So enemies, when they pop up for me in certain locations, may not pop up for you, because they're trying to keep things. They're trying to keep us, the player, on our toes. Another thing I forgot about is how difficult the game is. The game is very hard. I played on medium, which I think is it's a very good challenge, because I think you're gonna die several times. You have to pay attention to your ammo. You can't go like guns blazing. You have to pay attention to what you're gonna put your upgrades in with the nodes versus the store and what you're gonna buy and sell. There's some strategy there in order to survive this game. But no, honestly, again, why it's a little tough to talk about is I think the base game itself is such a good game. It's legendary, it's iconic, whatever the hot word you want to use on it. The first Dead Space is a game that you shouldn't have missed. If you did miss it, now's your chance to have somebody forgive that sin of yours. But no, I mean, now for this game, this is the way to play it. It is that base great game. The game, some people remember, some people skipped on, and then it's just everything is elevated. It looks better than ever. It sounds better than ever. The enemies, the cutting through limbs is more detailed than ever before. They made a big deal of that, right? Leading into this game, that you'll have to like cut through layers of the enemies, of the necromorphs, before they start to fall apart. And boy, you can tell. I mean, there is depth to everything. Even the smallest little rooms in this game have details. The writing on the walls, the blood, the trails, the enemy. I mean, it's such a good game. It really is, and I do believe it's worth it. They add a little bit more. So this game is, normally like an 8-ish hour game, I'd say, the original. There is some added side missions, things that you could probably just walk your way into. I did that. There's several side missions that, for me as an explorer and as somebody who wants ammo at all times, I go everywhere, right? So if I know where the path is, I'll go left instead of right. And then I honestly oftentimes will walk myself into, not a cutscene, but like a hologram kind of recording that like advances a side mission that I forgot about that I even had, or and then with that, you'll still find your ammo. You'll still find your stuff that you were looking for. And some of that stuff is added. Some of that stuff is new. And you are going to probably want to take your time. You are going to want to explore, not just for, primarily, at least for my reasons, primarily for the resources. But the joy of this game is when you do that, you inadvertently get some cool little story thing, some side thing. You learn about what happened there. A lot of this game is told through, the hologram kind of recordings or audio logs or text logs, but it's a pretty rich game. Like the story of, again, I'm not going to spoil it. The story of it's really cool, like finding out what happened, and it's a kind of a piecemeal thing. Like you're finding out throughout the whole game what in God's name was going on as things kind of got worse for, those that were on this vessel, right? Like what happened. You learn that. Those games are pretty cool, at least in my opinion. So, yes, it's pricey. It's a full $70 experience on next gen. It's definitely, it's up there in price. But I honestly think, if you've never played it before, now if you have played it and you still play it, and Dead Space is still readily available, kind of everywhere, is it worth $70? Well, that's absolutely up to you. It's almost of, again, do you want to upgrade where the best place to play the game is? That's probably for those kind of people more than anything. If you've already played the base game, you're looking at this as, is this the better way of playing it? The answer is yes. So if that means that you're going to upgrade and this will be your new home for every time you replay Dead Space, instead of going back, you'd play this game, then there's your worth. If you've never played it before, there's, I would say, zero reason, to get on the older systems, get it on this one, or get this game, I guess, and that's probably where I'd land on it. So, fantastic start to the year so far, everybody. Hi-Fi Rush, loved the game to death. This game, really, really enjoy it. I'll have videos on other games as well as the days go on. Thank you for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on. I hope to see you all on the next one.